Hey, everybody, it's Eddie from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan, and it's been a dark green day for the ASEAN region, for Asia, for Oceania. Yeah, I hope it continues for everyone in the West. There are some standout gains. We've got Polkadot up 13% in the last 24 hours, Decentraland up 29%, and Solana up 31%. Well, I woke up this morning and made a comment on Bob Way's post, and the next thing I knew, the two of us had started a Twitter space that he hosted. He wanted to talk about the Flair network's proposal and the importance of governance. It was full of the XRP community, about 3,300 tuned in. The record button was not hit, but I can tell you that it was quite civil. Lots of people taking the stage, including David Schwartz. It was an excellent impromptu space. Now, Bob leans towards a no vote for this new proposal that we'll all start voting on in about 6 days. The vote period of time will last a week, and he just really wants everyone to know that this is the time for discussion. Now, when David popped in, he leans towards a yes vote. While it was really interesting to hear him recalling the early attempts, and maybe you could say failures, of what they tried for the XRP adoption. Both of them have a lot of compassion for what Hugo is attempting to do. We've really just begun to learn how to govern this network as a community. Now, this proposal, which is called the FIP01, it's really good to know that 85% of all the FLR belonging to Flair entities and team are escrowed, and they cannot vote. These will be distributed alongside the distribution to the community. The foundation-related entities just are not allowed to vote, and the foundation must remain neutral. So they don't have a majority in this vote. If you were holding XRP on December 12th, 2020, and on an exchange that was participating or an exchange that is still in business and has followed through on what they promised, well, you should have some Flair. The amount that was distributed thus far has been 15%, and the distribution is looking to be changed. And so if you are currently a Flair holder, you're going to be interested in this proposal. If you weren't a holder of XRP back in 2020, you're going to be interested in this proposal too, because the change would allow people who aren't part of the original snapshot to also participate. So it really is a big proposal, and I'm going to put a link to it in the description of this video. I have another important link for you, and that is if you are going to custody your FLR but not delegate it. So if you're holding it in, let's say, for example, a Bifrost wallet, a MetaMask wallet, maybe a Ledger Nano, and if you don't have plans to delegate those votes to an FTSO provider, this is a fantastic link that'll tell you how to connect your voting power to the Flair voting portal. And if you want to know why maybe you should delegate, I have a very good Flair technical documentation link for you that I'm also going to include. It takes you down through the FAQs, which are very helpful to understand just what you want to do with your FLR. In both cases, your tokens need to be wrapped in order for your votes to count. Now, if you do choose to delegate, you're not giving up the ownership of your tokens. So just remember, wrapped tokens are required to vote, and never wrap all of your FLR, because you need to have some remaining to be used as gas when you sign transactions. When you do delegate your votes, you're going to be rewarded for that, and those rewards come back to you in the form of FLR. And yeah, the rewards over a period of time can be significant. There are two channels on YouTube that I want to point out that you really must watch on a regular basis to stay on top of what's going on with Flair. The first one is Mickey B. Fresh and the DeFi Standard channel and the Flair Community channel. If you watch these two channels, you are really going to know everything you need to know to maneuver in this space with Flair. Just about 3 days before the distribution took place of Flair, I was able to talk with Hugo and ask him a few questions about projects that are being built on Flair. You know, not only are there a lot of projects that are currently live, one of which is Sparkles. They're going to be on the channel too later on this month, but there are some that you may not be aware of, and I do know that there are a lot of projects that have been waiting in the wings, ready for Flair to go live so they can start building. Anyway, it's going to be very fun to see. I'm going to let this 10-minute clip that is part of a much larger video that was put together by the Flair Networks team. But just 10 minutes here where I have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask Hugo. So I'm going to let him just take this video out. And until next time, yes, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Hey, Eri.
Nice to see you. So
Nice
tell
to
me, there's so many questions I have, but I'm going to keep it just down to 4. Tell me about the Panther integration, because I understand it's going to bring more privacy to the Flair holder, and I want to understand this a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. So Panther is using zero knowledge proofs to essentially create a shielded pool. What does that mean? That means lots of people can put tokens into the pool, and the pool is essentially external to the network. It then uses zero knowledge proofs essentially to allow you to come in and out of that pool without others being able to track that. So what does that let you do? When I say track that, I mean track exactly who has done that. So that pool can then trade on your behalf on DEXs and things like that without it being known who is doing that trading. It obviously requires a large number of people to go into that pool in order for there to be sufficient privacy as to which entity is exactly doing those transactions. But this is a very exciting application of zero knowledge proofs. Now, really importantly is that unlike some of the other privacy layers, they are incorporating compliance and KYC into that. It is optional, but we think it's very important that if there's going to be privacy, and privacy is a fundamental right, that there is a way to prove that that entity or person who is doing the trading is compliant. So there can be lots of different variations. There can be uncompliant privacy pools, and that is entirely up to the individual. But for institutions, I think it's very important that they are able to transact with privacy whilst maintaining KYC and legal compliance. This creates a much greater likelihood that institutions will come to blockchain if they can trade with privacy, because they don't want their positions to be revealed in real time, because it creates a disadvantage against others, against other market participants, especially if you're a large institution. So that's sort of what Panther are up to. I think it's very exciting. I'm a big believer in privacy. I think that it's an absolutely necessary prerequisite for blockchain to get global adoption.
Very valuable option. Good. Okay. Tell me about the Flair Grants program.
So the Flair Grants program is administered by the Flair Foundation, which is a Dutch entity, a non-profit, which holds a large amount of the Flair tokens. There's also a separate entity called Flair VC, which holds some tokens on behalf of the foundation and will be investing those tokens. So as with the entire community, the foundation and Flair VCs and every Flair entity and all the team members' tokens are locked up, so that whatever we would be getting at 36 months, we only have 15% of on day one, like everyone else. Very important that we are completely in sync with the rest of the community. We do not want to be ahead of them, or any of that kind of stuff. So Flair Foundation has a certain supply. Flair VC has a certain supply. Flair Foundation is administering the grants program. Grants program, over many years can have up to about 8% of the total network's tokens go into it. Not likely that anywhere near that amount, more likely 1/10 of that amount would go into it in the near term, let's say the next 2 to 3 years. So relatively small amount of tokens to do certain things: strategic grants and community grants. Strategic grants are larger grants given to, I guess, what we would call strategic partners who want to build something of, potentially great value on the network. Community grants are for smaller applications, for things that create utility, for things that do things in a better way. So, for instance, once the state connector is released, one of the great things about the state connector is that it is updatable at the client side. So what I mean by that is that we don't have to do anything on the blockchain to add new events to the state connector. It's entirely updatable at the client side. And the state connector, by the way, the code for the state connector is in the network at day one. So that's really important. It's really then just getting the client side up and running and having people operate that client side that then brings the state connector to the network. So building new client side versions, there'll be a version of the client side released, but building new versions reduces our risk. Definitely have grants for that. But adding events to the client side, so adding new data types, so for instance, a new blockchain or a new action on a blockchain. So for instance, let's say Cosmos. Let's say we want to support the Cosmos ecosystem and be able for Flair to understand what has happened on a Cosmos chain. Adding essentially a new event, so a Cosmos chain event, and say a transaction type. So is this a smart contract call? Is this a payment or whatever? This is essentially the role of community grants. So we're going to have a very big emphasis on building out utility around the existing protocols on Flair, so the state connector, the FTSO. And then there'll be strategic grants, which are larger for very large applications. So for instance, one of the strategic grants we're looking at the moment is a relay system, which takes all the information that Flair has gathered, so from the time series oracle and from the state connector, and then allows that to be relayed elsewhere.
My next question is about Probity. It's a website that I have been taking a peek on through the Trustline Twitter feed, and also having a look in GitHub to see what they're up to. And I see this integration happening with Flair and FLR and the such. And also the big shout out that you received on the website that you were integral in making it happen. I'm just kind of curious, what's going on here, and what is this site going to provide?
So Probity is an application that has been built, and I believe the team have open sourced it and allow anyone to deploy it. Probity is a lending system that allows people to borrow on a blockchain. Specifically, there's an EVM version of that, and so anyone can take that EVM version and deploy that on Flair. And we're really thankful to the Probity team, especially Matt, for building that. And we think it'll be a great basis for lending applications to be built on Flair.
Okay, great. Another really valuable tool and source for people to leverage this great state connector. Wonderful. My last question is an odd one, maybe, but I was really happy to see the Tennyson poem that you put for the New Year's greeting, and I just really want to know, is there another Tennyson poem that you can recite?
I can't recite this one, but I remember very much as a young child my uncle reciting this at me endlessly, which was the charge of the Light Brigade. And I think that's really what why I like Tennyson, probably from that early experience. I think he may have had a bit to drink, to be honest with you. He certainly did recite it quite frequently. But there's another Tennyson poem I really, really like, and it's break, break, break on thy cold grey stones, O sea, and I would that my tongue could utter the thoughts that arise in me. And it's very, it very much sort of embodies for me, you know, that tempest in your mind when you're in, you know, a place where we're all in a lot of the time, or some of the time. It's difficult, and that storm in your mind, and you know, it's sort of, it's to know that other people have that mentality, is relieving in a way for me.
Brilliant. I love it. Thank you so much, Hugo. I really, really appreciate the time, and I look forward to the drop.
Thank you so much. And you were the first person that interviewed me, so thank you for doing so. And I don't think the Flair and the Flair community would be here without you.
Oh, that's way too much to say, but I'm just so happy and grateful for all the work that you've done and the value that you've brought to the ecosystem. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And please pass that on to the team too.
I will, absolutely. Thank you, Eri. Happy New Year.
Okay, bye-bye.